to you. Today is Tuesday, the 30th of June 2026, month end, quarter end, and H1 end. So the first half of 2026 finish today. Tomorrow we start a brand new chapter, the second part of the year, Q3, Q4, and obviously July month end. So it's quite exciting. And the reason why is because I think that this year started with a lot of challenges, and now the things start to get a bit more settled, more clear was what we are going towards, and the business outcomes start to get more, how can I put this, more achievable, right? Because the international economies, the international technologies, the international technologies, I mentioned technology economies and social changes, if you may, are or social environments are a bit more settled. And I don't want to be naive. There are about 30 wars happening in the world right now, right here. There are many challenges in many areas, in all these areas. I mentioned technology, social, and economic, though the things are looking slightly more better than a month ago or 2 months ago, right? So that is helps also to say, okay, fine, we can renovate our energies towards the end of the year. By the way, my name is Francisco Gaffney, and this is my daily streaming all about governance, risk, compliance, and advisory boards. So the model that you have in front of you, as we discussed yesterday, is the full advisory board operating system, and we are talking particularly this week the rhythm, the system as a whole, how or what you need to implement when to make it work. We spoke about how to put your advisory board together. We spoke about what to do inside that advisory board, and particularly now I say, which is a cadence, which is a process that we had to follow to make sure that actually these four milestones that we have in front of us are achievable, right? Like scale, we're going to talk specifically today. Tomorrow we're going to talk about predictability. On Thursday we're going to talk about systems, which your operation procedures, your workflows, not just the IT and hardware and software. And Friday we are going to wrap up the week on what to do when throughout the year with the operating model, and particularly with your innovation and transformation, which is the left-hand side of the model. So today we are going to focus on commercial acceleration or scaling. And here the advisory board will look at brand, people, and partnerships. So let's focus our model where we need to focus it. Here it is. Now let's go and discuss this because it's quite interesting. So this is useful because many businesses think scale means more sales, right? But unfortunately, that's not the whole picture. More sales can be growth, but scale is different. And let me put side by side scale and growth with a few considerations, right? So growth as volume, but scale adds capacity. And here we go. So growth says we need more leads, right? But scale ask, why does every good lead still need the founder or the executive team or a lot of dependencies, if you may? So growth might say we need more people, right? More personnel, more capacity to execute things. But scaling will ask, why do new people need so much rescue? Meaning why the onboarding process is so slow, why the people take so long to be productive in terms of independent. And here is a blank chart method is a very good idea to have present. There are four quadrants in terms of how the people is developing the teams. So this is a very good idea to start to have that method present in the organization. Growth may say is also we need more partnerships, like more distribution, more resellers, more added value channel. And scale may ask, why do partnerships still depend on private relationships? So actually, you don't have a systematic way and a template of how the partnerships should work, deliver, and work together with your organization. So as you can see, the branding, the people, and the partnerships all depends on how you scale your organization. And let's put it in another way with a very simple representation. Scaling is like having the same operation cost, procedures, etc., but the revenue is increasing. It's like a wedge, right? Like a 45-degree angle. But growing the organization needs more capital, so and more operational expenses. So as the revenue increases, the operational expenses and the capital growth, right? So going parallel. So this is something that we're going to address tomorrow on the capital and growth in the predictability of the organization. Now, in terms of scaling, which is the brand, the people, and the partnerships, let's take a look at three problems with this. The problem number one is that the founder dependency. I say founder could be executive team, could be non-executive directors or the board that currently is in the team. The dependency on them is dressed up as momentum, right? So as I mentioned, revenue is rising, the diaries, it looks full, the calendar, the teams look very busy, but the executive team, the founder, it feels important, useful, and wanted, which is great. But two main important decisions still run through one people or these people, but in particular the founder, the executive team, and the executive directors. That is not really a strength. That is a concentration risk because it's what is called the boomerang effect. So a decision is made and do this, and then it comes back to you again saying, here, we need your decision, we need somebody to unlock this situation, etc. So thus dependencies are a concentration risk, really. Problem number two is that the shallow succession. I say shallow, which is this has no depth. It's something actually is very, very thin. So the business has senior people, but not enough decision depth, as I mentioned, right? So you might have your managers, you might have your directors, but actually every time that they have to make a decision, they have to come back to the executive team or the founder. So I mean, executive team, I mean with the senior executives like C-suite or founders. So people can execute, that don't get me wrong, but they cannot always judge. And that is a kind of a dependency and succession problem. They can follow processes, but they cannot always challenge the work. So you stay, the executive team or the founder stay close to everything because stepping back feels unsafe. You cannot trust people to do a business trip or a fair or something if you're not there. And unfortunately, you cannot duplicate yourself and be in three places at the same time, right? So before, the classic question was, what would you, how your business continue with you taking 30 days holiday or something like that? Now it's not that question anymore. It's how your business can survive if you cannot be in the same place the same day in two places at the same time, right? Because that gets so fast, so diversified that actually you cannot duplicate yourself the same day. And that is a big problem in terms of succession, delegation of responsibility, and decision making. And problem number three is the partnership. I mean, the distribution channel in resellers, distributors, etc. The partnership value is not transferable. What I mean is that the company has a good relationship with people, but the trust sits with the named individuals. It's not a system, it's not a process, it's not a workflow, it's not an operating procedure. If you as a founder or your executive team or a senior commercial person leaves, their relationship weakens, and that is a flaw. The company may have access then, but it does not fully own the assets, and your partnerships are your assets. That is what makes your company valuable. The Sage, the accounting software now is bigger than just accounting software. Their plan is that by 2027 to have, I think, 95% of their revenues through distribution channels. 95%. So they're not going to depend in one partner or a network partner. Worldwide, they plan to have 95% of the revenues through distribution. So 5% only is their internal teams. So you can imagine you can completely wipe out your internal team and you still have 95% of your revenues coming through. I think that plan is ambitious and actually is very doable because they've been working in this plan, I think, since 2024. So they have like 4 years, 5 years to develop this plan, and I think that they are halfway there. based on the latest report, I think that early this year. But anyway, so just to give you an example of how the partnership can become your assets, because if you go into country and 95% of your revenues are coming from partners or distributors or resellers, you can imagine if you lose 3, 4, 5, 6, it doesn't really impact your revenues. It doesn't make a significant dent on your yearly revenues. So this is a very important asset that not many people are considering as a value for the organization. In other words, imagine this. You have a car with a strong engine, but a weak gearbox or weak transmission. So the power is there. You can hear it like very, very nicely. It's a noise. The speed might even there for a while too, but the transfer, as I mentioned, is weak. That is what happens when ambition is strong, but your brand, your people, and your partnerships are not yet built as assets or as assets. So, as a board advisor, what I would propose to consider is the following. Use the advisory board to identify where scale is blocked. Not in a theory, but in the real business. And let me suggest 3 things. The first, start with your brand. Can the business explain its value clearly without the founder, you or your executive team in the room every single time, right? The other question is, does the market know what the business stands for? So it doesn't matter what business you are in. I've been working with metal sheet manufacturers. They are very well known in the community. But the industry that they serve, they don't know them. They go tender after tender after tender trying to collect revenue. But the brand, they should have a brand, a reputation in the market, if you may, of companies that buy that kind of product or services. And also, does your brand earn trust before the sales call? So they already know who you are before even calling you or you reaching out to them. So these are the things I actually have to consider in terms of branding. In terms of people, your personnel, your resources, in terms of the people that make your company work, there's a few questions that you should ask, and I think that's very important. So particularly because if you don't have people, you have an empty building there, you don't have a business, you can have a brand, but nobody can execute on that. So where that judgment sits, so the decisions still need your approval, your executive approval. So how independent they are to deliver, process, or act upon the company strategy and vision or a milestone, right? So is the succession too shallow? So it's still depending on a few people. Actually, they always have to ask for something when the things get complicated. And lastly, which roles are busy but not designed very well? And I remember a case that was very clear, that actually they hired very, very skilled people, very experienced, for the very wrong positions, because they were not that type of people that will execute in that level. And you have to look back into your team and say where the people are doing what they have to do. So sometimes a promotion is not the best thing, because it could be an absolutely fantastic individual contributor, but a horrible manager, team leader, or in terms of leadership, because they know what they know to do, because they know their own skill sets, their own capacities, their own network, but they cannot transfer that to other people because it's part of their character, it's part of their attitude, it's part of their way to be, right? So how many times you've seen that actually you are promoting people and then turn out to be a complete disaster, and then you have to reposition this person somewhere else, or pretty much suggest to let them go after a period of time, or live with the consequences, which is a team that actually is very unhappy, underperforming, and the challenge is always there. And the third thing to look is the partnerships. Which relationships create demand, trust, and capability? Which ones are documented, as I mentioned, with one shares targets? So it's not just to sign the contract with the partner. So what are the shared targets with these partners and how they can be accountable for those targets? Which ones will survive a change of personnel, for example? If your partner manager working with 20, 25 partners, tomorrow is moved to a different position or leave the company, what happened with those relationships, right? So it's a process, a system that actually somebody take over and they can continue as is, or with a bumpy onboarding, if you may, but then continue as used to be, or can make it better because the processes are getting stronger and more transferable. So that is the scale lens into your organization, your brand, your people, and your partnerships. So a good advisory board helps you as a founder to see what you are carrying that the business should now carry, not you, the business should carry. And this might feel personal sometimes, but it sounds like if you as a founder steal the commercial shortcut, the business has smart people, but not enough decision depth and partnership work, but mainly because of a personal trust. It's everything depending on you still. So then these are your signals, not these are the signals to pay attention and transfer to the advisory board so they can help turn those signals into actions that can be transferred and delegated to your organization. Not you don't have to carry all the time with these things. So maybe the company needs a clear market story, or a stronger onboarding path, or a better role design and a partner shared action plan, you name it. So, or maybe it needs a proper succession plan around key commercial decisions, like a senior expertise for 6 months, not a permanent executive hire. Like now, fractional roles are very, very accessible, and that is very important. You do not always need to hire one big role, because sometimes you need a focused advisory board, perhaps around a scale milestone with the exact mix of brand expertise, people expertise, succession expertise, partnership expertise, and experience. You don't need to hire one person permanently. So in 6 month period of time or 1 year, with an advisory board running all these things, can unlock an amount of things actually today are depending on you, and can make your company more valuable, because as much as document and evidence the processes that are founder independent, so it's not depending on you, the more valuable is a company for in terms of loans, shareholders, investment, or if you want to exit also, because the people see that it's transferable and they have options to do that. So what do you gain working with me? So 3 main things: business outcomes, differentiators, and risk reductions. The outcome is your founder-centered growth become repeatable commercial scale. So you don't have to be there all the time to do the things that have to be done. The differentiator is a rotation international advisory board. You get the right expertise faster than hiring one executive, with lower overhead than a big consulting firm, no talent locked in, and the flexibility to refresh the expertise every 6 months. And the risk reduction is dependency. If commercial momentum still relies on one person judgment, network, or stamina, the business is more fragile than it looks. So we reduce that by turning your founder knowledge into a capability that transferred to the company. So let me show you a little design here that you can put into practice right away in 30 minutes or less, just to start this process. And here it is. And let me explain what this means. List the 5 commercial decisions that still depend on one person. Could be you as a founder, could be somebody in your executive team, could be your directors or non-executive directors. Then tag each one as brand, people, or partnerships, and gives you and that will give you your first scale bottleneck map, which is this graph that we are seeing here, right? You can screenshot this, or you can ask me privately, and I send the PowerPoint over to you so you can check it yourself. So let's pause it here for today and reconvene tomorrow, because tomorrow we are continue moving into the model, and we're going to go from scaling to predictability, because a business can grow and still confuse you as a founder, a board, or investors about your margins, your capitals, and asset quality. What I mean is, actually, even if you think, oh, we are doing absolutely fantastically well, probably the growth that you have there is a risk rather than an advantage. And this is not to make statements, spooky statements, or grabbing attention to things actually are not there. but is something that actually you should look into to make sure that doesn't surprise you around the corner. Now, if you have a company with 50 or more employees or more than 10 million revenue, and you want to move from this dependency to a repeatable scaling, let's have a 30-minute chat. So I can understand where you're coming from, where you are, where you want to go. And we can design together an advisory board that brings you 24% revenue increases and 18% more productivity. This has been documented that the capacities that advisory boards have and can be easily achieved faster than implementing or hiring one executive, a lower overhead than a big consulting firm, and no talent locked in, and swappable members every 6 months. So have a great day, and